So today is the last session for our Aerospace Quality and Project Management course, and basically we will look at the last part of the risk management of aerospace industry. And right after the session, I will highlight a little bit in terms of the final examination format. Okay, in terms of the risk management, this is the part 3 where we are going to look into the implementation and optimization of risk and safety management. Basically, there are 4 phases of implementation, phase 1, 2, 3, and 4. Phase 1, basically we will look into organization of implementation and optimization of risk and safety management. And then we have phase number 2, risk collection and assessment. Phase 3, about risk mitigation. And finally, phase 4, the continuous improvement and change management. So basically, we are going to look into the 4 phases tonight, and we most likely going to spend around 30 to 40 minutes. In terms of the overview, the following SMS implementation process is divided into 4 different phases in order to split up the workload and to provide a convenient structure to follow when implementing the safety management system, or known as SMS. Right, let us look into the first one, the phase 1, the organization. So in phase 1, the first step of doing safety management system implementation, the basic structure, okay, should be developed, and the compliance document has to be issued, which identifies the accountable executive. And normally this is the person who are need to be identified to handle the safety management system, and the person within the organization who is responsible for the implementation of the SMS, safety management system. So the key deliverables basically comprises of the following. So we need to conduct gap analysis, safety objective of the organization approved by the accountable executive or accountable manager, safety policy, right? What are the safety policy of the company signed by the accountable executive, safety policy which need to be distributed across the entire organization. Everybody should get this safety policy or make known to all of the employees. SMS organizational structure in place, the safety management system organizational structure, lines of safety accountability established, and then approval of SMS implementation plan and initial training, and finally the emergency response planning implementation process. Okay, so that is basically the phase 1 of the implementation for safety management system. Okay, so in terms of the detail, what is need to be done in terms of project planning and implementation. So at the start of the safety management system implementation, it should be initiated by appointing the person, the executive, accountable executive, or establishing the planning group which responsible for the development of the SMS implementation project plan. And all applicable documents that contribute to the SMS implementation plan should then be collected, where the cost associated for the training and planning of the implementation must also be identified, so that the budget for SMS implementation can be drafted and approved. Without that, there will be no effective implementation. Okay, establishing the allocation of time for the development, you have to set a timeline of the development as well as the deployment of the safety management system implementation plan among the different management layers of the organization. is the next step. When then the organization must then allocate resources for the SMS implementation and generate a draft budget. So it has to be allocated in terms of how much money need to be spent in terms of implementation of the SMS. Finally, submitting the SMS implementation plan for endorsement by the top management and conducting regular meeting to assess the progress are the last steps, right? In terms of the gap analysis, what you need to do, basically to start the SMS implementation process, it is essential to perform gap analysis. Basically, this is to identify already existing safety management measures, what you already have in place within the organization and those parts that are missing in the organizational context. So where you are, what are about the readiness of the company, and what are the gaps that are identified in order for you to fill up the gap. And based upon the results in the gap analysis, the responsible individuals for the implementation should be able to develop a SMS implementation plan. So at the beginning of the process and the planning process, the identification of the potential gaps that may hinder the SMS implementation phases have to be accounted for. So you must try to identify what are the hurdles, what are the things that are lacking, what are the gaps, and what are the hurdles that may hinder the implementation, as well as the development of strategy to address such gap have to develop in advance, right? In terms of the policy and principles, right, a safety policy and normally being signed by the accountable executive and which is communicated throughout the organization has to be developed, right? So the safety policy is a high-level statement of desired corporate safety performance. So each aviation organization should conduct their business according to the following key safety principles. Basically, they have to put safety, which is normally considered as the core value of the company. So it is a safety first, right? So you cannot put profit first or whatever things first. So safety must be the core value of the company, especially for aviation related or aerospace related. Everyone is responsible for the identification, reporting and management of risk, not just the accountable executive or the designated group of people. It involves everyone, right? Always operate in the safest manner practicable. Never take unnecessary risks. Recognition that familiarity and prolonged exposure without a mishap leads to a loss of appreciation of risk. Meaning that if you do not have any incident or accident for maybe couple of years, that doesn't mean that something bad could not happen. So this will be resulted to loss of appreciation of risk. Safe does not mean risk-free. There are so many risks that can happen even in a safe room. So many other things that can happen. And then we move into accountabilities. In order to have precise overview of the accountabilities, a clear lines of communication between the safety manager, the accountable executive, and the safety action group, okay, and the safety review board have to be established. So the assessment of functional lines of communication should be commensurate with the size of organization and complexity of the services provided. So firstly, appoint senior managers, include line managers responsible for functional areas to the safety review board. Then assign the safety review board appropriate strategic and tactical functions in order to process safety relevant information and lessons learned. So finally, develop a scheduled meeting among the safety service office with the SRB and safety aviation group as needed. Alright. And then we move into safety requirements and accountabilities of subcontractor still in the first phase of organization. The management of subcontractors is something that has to be thought about when implementing SMS processes. The primary purpose of safety requirement and accountabilities for subcontractors is to include them in your risk management process. Normally, if you conduct processes for aviation company or manufacturing company, you also get involved with subcontractors. So the subcontractors are also need to be included in the risk management process, and you must include them because some of the job going to be conducted by some subcontractors. So subcontractors will provide goods. They send items, components. They also provide services, and they conduct maintenance. Probably they do replacement of parts and so on, and often also operate in the same environment as your organization. For example, at the airport or the hangar or the warehouse. So the subcontractors will also get involved, and that will be resulted in terms of the accident. That means that they have to be included in the risk management process. So some incident or accidents can be directly caused by the subcontractors themselves. For example, by a ground handling provider for an airline because of the human errors and so on, right? So therefore, it becomes important to define the safety requirements, accountabilities, and interfaces between your organization and the subcontractors, right? And then the next one is safety management manual. Okay, so draft a safety management manual, SMM, to communicate the organization approach to safety across the whole organization. So the safety management manual is a living document. What does it mean is that it can be expanded, it can be reviewed, and as well as amended accordingly as the phase approach of the SMS evolve. Right? The safety management manual serves as a basic guide for all personnel involved in the safety of organizations, flight maintenance, or general operation. Such a manual should be defined the policy that governs the safety operation of an aviation company. SMM, Safety Management Manual, should also deliver a reactive and proactive integrated approach to safety management. Right? So that is basically the organization who need to get involved, what are the things need to be implemented to prepare the safety management plan, and then you have the safety management manuals, okay, that need to be organized in order to conduct the implementation and optimization of risk and safety management. That is first phase 1. Let us goes into the phase 2 with regards to the risk collection and assessment. Right. In phase number 2, risk collection and assessment, the focus is to correct potential deficiencies within the system and to work on key safety management processes. This step should be supported by conducting an analysis based on information obtained through reactive data collection measures. So the organization should demonstrate that it has certain components of the SMS in place. And the first one is that they need to have the safety management system elements that has already been developed in the phase 1, the organizational phase. And then it has to have reactive processes. The third one, investigation and analysis procedures. Risk management procedure. Number 5, training for personnel and assigned duties within the safety management system. And finally, documented policies and procedures of the SMS. So these are the components of the SMS that need to be in place. Right. The first one, the risk collection. So in order to perform the systematic and efficient collection of information on possible hazards, a safety database or master risk list has to be developed and should be served as the corporate safety memory. Right? So most hazards are latent conditions and are present within the company's processes and operations. So you need to build up database in terms of what are the potential risks, what are the previous hazards or accident that has already happened, right? Identified hazards need to be gathered as well as analyzed to avoid fatal accident, right? People are rarely aware of hazards. Therefore, documentations plays a key role when actively managing safety. You cannot just leave as it is and just sweep it under the floor. Right? Knowledge is an essential requirement for proactive hazard management and must be shared within the organization, especially for the management of raw data and assessment of hazard-related information. And then to continue, a historical data, because as I said earlier, you have to make a database of hazards and safety relevant information, provides a solid base for generating a quantitative analysis and thus allowing decision to be based on facts rather than relying on personal opinion. Because if you just base on personal opinions of the workers, the engineers, the supervisors, the managers, sometimes it's based on their experience, based on their maybe historical background, their surrounding, but not based on facts. If you have a good database of all the collection of hazard and safety relevant information, then you can use that to make quantitative analysis and then lead to a effective decision. Okay, so the database has to be able to manage the raw data and to display it so that conclusion regarding hazard can be drawn. Consequently, standardizing the reporting, defining the terms, including the measurement of safety information and management of the tracking and analysis of hazards are key prerequisites. It's very important. Next, reporting procedure and whistle blowing. What is it actually? So, safety risk management includes specifying the means of collecting, recording, acting on, and generating feedback about hazards and risks in daily operation. First of all, it must be determined what form of intervention tools have to be used to collect reactive information. Do you need to provide a system or a platform or apps for all the workers to provide information? Or the next paragraph shows that going to be read shows a common example of reactive approach by identifying hazards in the form of air safety report. Subsequently, it has to be decided which reporting system will be required and adapted to the organization. So there are 3 different approaches which are common throughout various aviation organizations. And normally, it is called mandatory reporting system, voluntary, as well as confidential reporting system. According to ICAO 17, the following key principles are to be considered when establishing a voluntary reporting system within the generic framework of an organization's of safety management system. The first one is trust, all right? And then non-punitive, inclusive reporting based, confidentiality, independence, ease of reporting, acknowledgement, as well as promotion. Okay, so this is just a process what we call it as a SWAN's reporting process. Okay, this is the reference that I took. Basically, you have this from the SWAN report, you have a reference number, you have preliminary hazard and risk analysis, further analysis needed. If yes, in-depth analysis and mitigation action, closure of report or elimination of reporters' contact details, and then you can go into the trend analysis and feedback to the industry. So the process within there, we also have a loop in terms of looking at the actual process. All right. At the same time, risk collection and assessment, this is a risk metric, right? So normally being used in the risk assessment where you put up the different rubrics or category. Category, for example, like the red colored region over here, which is risk is not acceptable. Okay, normally it is more than 10. We denoted as the marks as more than 10, which is 10 to 25. It is risk is not acceptable. The yellow one from 4 till 9, which is tolerable risk, evaluate measures for risk mitigation, and 1, 2, and 3 level is acceptable, which is no measures required. Okay, so and basically in the risk metric, we also have the probability, whether it is practically impossible, unlikely, possible, occasional, or often. So as well as severity, is it insignificant, low severity, moderate, critical, or disaster. So basically each of the identified hazards, okay, or safety aspect need to be analyzed and look into where does it falls, whether is it going to go into the red zone or the yellow zone or the green zone. All right. Okay, in line with the risk indicators identified, the safety managers should initiate the measures described below as I highlighted earlier, the red, yellow, and the green. Okay, let us move into the phase number 3, which is risk mitigation. Right? What do we mean by risk mitigation? So it is the process of incorporating defenses and or preventive controls to lower the severity, right, and or likelihood of a hazard's projected consequence. It's not about eliminating. It's not about shifting. It is just lowering the effect, okay, the severity, okay. Upon assessment of the safety risk in terms of severity and probability, and visualizing the safety risk in the safety risk metric, the outcome is only an intangible product of an investigation. Okay, so safety tolerability matrix, this is defined in ICAO. Okay, so intolerable region, tolerable region, and acceptable region. Basically, as low as reasonably practicable. So you want the risk to be at the acceptable region, right? So in order to materialize the output from the previous assessment, okay, the matrix, the safety risk has to be further categorized to analyze its potential damage to a safe operation. So this second step classifies the safety risk according to the organization's tolerability, right? Intolerable, can it be tolerable? Okay, means that it is unacceptable under any circumstances. The most probable solution in this case would be to cancel operation. So there are so many decision being made that need to be decided to cancel the operation. So for example, like you the flight for example, like from Kuala Lumpur to Melbourne, and then suddenly along the way there's some damage, or the pilot detected some errors in the operation of the engine. So the in term of the matrix value, it is intolerable that the pilot need to decide that yes, we need to cancel the flight and we have to go back to the nearest airport, or maybe come back to the origin. So this can be considered as intolerable. How about tolerable? Okay, it is the condition where acceptable based on the mitigation processes that should follow. So this is a tolerable and acceptable. There are still a risk over there, but it is acceptable without starting a mitigation process. Okay, as we already defined, mitigation is basically to reduce the severity. Okay, and in this case, for acceptable, where without starting a mitigation process due to their unlikely occurrence or negligible severity during normal operations. Alright, so then we look into investigate possible mitigation measures. So what are the possible mitigation measures? There are different ways for organization to choose the most appropriate strategy to control a known risk associated with the provided service. And the following example provide 3 ways of addressing specific risk. The first one, risk avoidance. So risky task, procedure, operation or activity is avoided if the associated risk is determined to exceed the economic benefits. The economic benefit is exceeded, so we just trigger the risk avoidance. Loss reduction. Measures are taken to reduce the frequency of occurrence of unsafe or unwanted events, or the severity of their effects or consequences. And finally, control of exposure by separation or duplication. Action is taken to isolate the risk or to ensure redundancy to protect against the risk. Use of non-flammable insulation material, this is example, or backup system to reduce the likelihood of total system failure. Alright, so investigate possible mitigation measure. There are 3 ways in terms of addressing the specific risk. How about cost benefit analysis? Right, CBA. A cost benefit analysis is a formal technique by which the benefits of an operations are weighed against its cost. Right, so that's why we call it cost benefit analysis. Some factors of a cost benefit analysis cannot be predicted exactly. Okay, especially when it comes to qualitative, less numeric figures which also have weight in this analysis. For example, managerial. Is the safety risk consistent with the organization's safety policy or objective? So this is quite difficult to quantify. It is a qualitative. How about legal? Is the safety risk in conformance with current regulatory standards and enforcement capabilities? And then cultural. How will the organization, personnel and other stakeholders view the safety risk? How about market? Will the organization competitiveness and well-being vis-a-vis or other organizations be compromised by the safety risk? Political, will there be a political price to pay for not addressing the safety risk? And the perception of public. How influential will the media or special interest group be in affecting public opinion regarding the safety risk? So these are the things that is not easy to quantify. It is a qualitative and less numeric figures, but it can be weighed in terms of cost-benefit analysis. Alright? So when applying a cost-benefit analysis, the organization has to distinguish between the direct and indirect costs and what level of impact they have on the organization, including the direct and indirect benefits. So this is your cost benefit analysis by Hacker 2012. So you have cost, direct cost, indirect cost, capital budgeting. Indirect cost basically is safety impact. In terms of benefits, what are direct benefits? Like risk assessment, severity, probability, indirect, soft factors, customer satisfaction. So you get an overview of the both. So you have to make decision, right, on the costs and benefits and whether it's a decision has to be made. All right. And then determination of mitigation measures, reducing the probability of occurrence or the severity of the consequences can be one mitigation measures. So in order to reach the desired risk reduction level, the implementation of more than one mitigation measures may be required. There are some possible approaches to effective risk mitigation outlined by ICAO. Revision of the system design before system implementation, modification of operational procedures, changes to staffing arrangement, and training of personnel to deal with the hazard. Right? And then about publication and documentation. All reported incident and hazards related findings and safety performance indicators as well as safety mitigation measures should be recorded and documented by the safety manager and be published and made accessible to all staff members. So this is very important. Some incident and hazard are not being reported widely. So it's being swept under the floor. Report should be presented anonymously without disclosing any personal data. You do not want to shame certain personnel. Okay, and publication is not aimed at assigning blame or exposing individual staff members, and reports are published anonymously. So making the report public is aimed more at raising risk awareness. You want to make sure everybody can learn from what had happened. Okay, and this is to achieve an ongoing improvement with a view to constantly improving safety levels and to sharing important experiences. And then emergency response planning, the ERP. Okay, it is known to have a strong process for risk mitigation, which is the ERP, emergency response plan, right? The most critical test of an organization credibility is at the time of a crisis. So you may see at the time of crisis whether the company or the organization has an emergency response plan. What needs to be done first, and then next, and then until the emergency can be settled. Okay, the danger of having the company's reputation wounded is greatest during the first hours. Therefore, disseminating information either from a central company source, right, or directly dealing with the media at the accident site must be a controlled process. You cannot just leave the situation under control. As an emergency response plan should be designed to assist company personnel in fulfilling the responsibilities of the company and in responding to aircraft accident or crisis situations and incidents in the most rapid way possible. So it is a structured approach to handling a crisis and is designed to assist company personnel in responding to aircraft accidents and incidents in the most rapid way possible. Okay, so we can now move into the final phase. The final phase, which is the fourth phase, about continuous improvement and change management. So in order to continuously improve the safety management system, the organization should establish and apply processes, which support the investigation of the causes of deviation from the prescribed safety standard. So in the case of safety critical event, the process of the review of the safety management system should be exclusively based on immediate corrections and not on a designated periodic inspection plan. What is actually change of management is a systematic approach to identifying and analyzing internal and external changes with the potential to affect the functionality of an organization and assess and control the risk associated with such changes. That is what we mean by change management. Okay? The designated group of people has to be equipped with the necessary competency to make decisions in the following listed areas. So what do we want basically? The group of risk management team need to make improvement and effectiveness of the SMS, safety management system. They also have to establish and implement the safety policy in all organizational areas, and then allocation of the necessary funds to achieve the safety goals. Okay? The assessment of the safety management system includes the following, right? So you need to have results of internal and external audits, observations concerning degree of fulfillment of safety goals, findings from hazard and event analysis and result from internal, external feedback, status of corrective and preventive measures, follow-up action from previous system assessment, changes that may affect the SMS recommendation for improvement, and exchange the best processes across organization. Right? And prior to undergoing any significant change that could impact flight operations, a change management process should be undertaken. Possible events that can indicate the need for a change management processes are such the introduction of new aircraft type. So you may need to have a change management process when you have introduction of a new aircraft type, significant change in the nature of the operation, and dynamic business growth, new operating environment. So that's just an example. Changes in hiring or scheduling practices, changes to organizational structure, or significant change in maintenance arrangement. So there's a possible event that can indicate the need for a change management process. In terms of the change management plan, which is should include an assessment of the changes required to items such as standard operating, maintenance procedures and processes, personnel training and competency certification, amendment of operation manuals such as Part A to D, maintenance control manual or maintenance procedure manual, or aircraft SOPs, etc. And so the change management plan should include these following assessment of the changes required. Okay, so with that, let's wrap up our topic on risk management. So we had three sessions altogether for risk management, and that would be the last subtopic for the subject on quality, aerospace quality and project management.